Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I want to talk a little bit about Survivor Series 2020, the Survivor Series that was last night, and my thoughts of it and my impressions. Um, I thought it was a pretty good show. What I really enjoyed was the New Day match against the Street Profits, Raw Tag Team Champions versus SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Another thing I enjoyed was the Undertaker tribute that happened, at the end of the show. Yeah, this was tremendous. The Undertaker was a part of every wrestling fan's childhood that was a wrestling fan, either in the 1990s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now ending in the 2000 in the 2020s. He was he was the face of the WWE. He was the franchise of the WWE. When other superstars left the company to go to WCW to pursue greener pastures, they were offered guaranteed contracts by Ted Turner and his organization. The Undertaker did not go there. He stood by Vince McMahon throughout it all. Through the bad times like 1994, 1995, 1993, and the really good times like 1998, 1999, 1997. The really, and even the newer bad times like 2010, 2011, he was always there. The Undertaker was a constant in every WWE fan's enjoyment of the show. He had tremendous, epic matches like the one he had with Shawn Michaels in 2009 at WrestleMania 25. Um, the Boneyard match this past year. The match where he lost his streak to Brock Lesnar in 2014, and so many others. It's just impossible to mention the history of the WWE without mentioning Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. Now, a lot of people think, well, he's not really going to retire because he was supposed to retire back in 2017, but didn't. He did the whole thing where he lost to Roman Reigns and he put his hat and his coat um, in the ring and he left it there, and it was supposed to symbolize the end of an era for the Undertaker. And even had a match back in 2012 at WrestleMania 28 that year called the end of an era match in a Hell in a Cell with him versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the referee. But I think, guys, this is it. This is the final straw for Taker. You know, he debuted at the Survivor Series in 1990, and he's ending it at the Survivor Series in 2020. I think, you know, this is finally it. You know, this is the last straw for the Phenom. Um, he's given us so much entertainment over the years, so many great moments. Some of the stuff that I enjoy, that I love from him, a lot of people don't love, like particularly the casket match in 1994, the Royal Rumble, when all the heels came out and they all beat his ass, and then um, he disappeared for like many months up until SummerSlam. From that was in January up until August of that year, and they would have Undertaker sightings with Leslie Nielsen, the star of Naked Gun, and yeah, it was just some real funny stuff. I mean, he was the Phenom. What I used to love from him when I started to watch um, professional wrestling in the early '90s is when he would just sit up and like he would just sit up straight. And even after he was beaten up and pulverized by his opponents, it would have no effect on him. He wouldn't sell it. Like when he was DDT'd by Jake the Snake Roberts on the funeral parlor show in Superstars in '92, and then Paul Bearer would just bring the urn up, and then he would just sit up, and it was just something that we never saw before in wrestling. And thank God Vince didn't go with this, but many will remember in the lead up to Survivor Series 1990, there was this big egg that they kept talking about for weeks and weeks, and it was rumored that Undertaker was supposed to come out of that egg and be the Eggman. He wasn't. It was Hector Guerrero, um, and his brother as the Gobbledygooker. And in this um, edition of Survivor Series, the Gobbledygooker shows up and he's dancing. It was WWE's version of the San Diego Chicken, and he does a do do with Mean Gene Okerlund. But yeah, the Undertaker is probably the last wrestler that many of us from that classical era will always remember and always look up to. And the tribute they did to him is really touching. All the members of BSK came out. Kane came out. It was just like the one they did for Ric Flair at the end of WrestleMania 24 when all the horsemen came out. And they did this for other guys too. you know, just saying goodbye. But this one was very interesting because when it came to BSK, many of us as fans didn't know really what BSK was. It was sort of like the Undertaker's version of the Click. It was Savio Vega, Rikishi, the Godwins, Yokozuna, Paul Bearer, and the Godfather, who was Kama at the time. And before that, prior to that, was Papa Shango. And that was the Undertaker's crew. That was the Bone Street crew. They weren't an on-camera crew. They were backstage. They were all friends. And to see that it finally acknowledged, this real life thing in a kayfabe pay-per-view was really something special. Of course, Yokozuna wasn't there because he's passed away, but his memory was definitely there, and Paul Bearers as well. But yeah, I'll miss seeing the Undertaker on screen. We'll probably still see him backstage. He'll still be probably working as an agent, probably working behind the scenes at NXT. Because when it comes to wrestling a gimmick style, like, and really perfecting a character and really perfecting commitment to an on-screen character, he did it the best. He did it better than anybody. You know, Kamala had done it. Um, Great Kabuki, other wrestlers, but the Undertaker, up until the time when kayfabe was completely shattered in the early 2000s, you never saw the Undertaker without his his in ring attire. You always saw him in character, even on TV shows like Regis and Kathy Lee or other shows. Late night with Conan O'Brien, you would always see him in his gear. He would never break kayfabe. He was really committed to that character, and he really made it work. Of course, later on, he wouldn't stick to that, and he would even go to the American Badass in the early 2000s. But during that time when kayfabe really meant something, he was fully committed to it, and you had to respect a wrestler like that takes his craft so seriously. Um, and also because the character, and I said this in other videos, I said this way back 3 or 4 years ago when they did the special on him. on the WWE Network, the Legend Special. A character like that is very hard to pull off because the premise of wrestling is that it is a physical competition, it's a mock physical competition, and when you're portraying a character that is a zombie, it's hard to do that and still remain compelling because in storyline and character he can't be hurt because he's already a zombie. So how do you portray that in a realistic setting? And um, I think Taker achieved that balance. It took quite a while for that to happen because his first couple of WrestleMania matches during his streak was pretty shitty. The ones with Jimmy Snuka, the ones with King Kong Bundy, the ones with Giant Gonzalez where he gets knocked out by chloroform and he loses. He wins by countout. But he eventually achieved that. He had towards the latter half of his career, he had a lot of classics under his belt. Two with Shawn Michaels, um, two with Triple H, three with Triple H actually. Um, WrestleMania 17, people forget about that. Um, Many with Brock Lesnar, many with Bray Wyatt. One with Bray Wyatt. Um, and this year, the Boneyard match with AJ Styles, making history to being the first ever wrestler to participate in a cinematic style match. So it was a hell of a career, a hell of a ride. Um, yeah, and the rest of the pay per view was pretty good. The match with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre was good, which surprised me because I really like Drew McIntyre, but I love Roman Reigns' new character. Him and Paul Heyman. So that was pretty good. The women's match, I don't know why they put Lana over. Maybe they're trying to gain some extra points. Trying to prove they're not so petty and so angry with Miro, aka Rusev, for leaving the company earlier this year. I don't know what to deal with that. But anyway, guys, peace.